All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Christina Mills. Welcome to the 6-month update for the Graph Advocates DAO. We're so excited to share all that we've been doing in the DAO since its launch. And today we're going to take a behind the scenes look at some of the DAO's inner workings. The mission of the Graph Advocates DAO is to drive greater participation in building a decentralized Web3 and grow the Graph ecosystem by supporting community-based initiatives and through contributions of Graph advocates. The Graph Advocates program is community-led and community-driven initiative, serving as a portal into Web3 for people all across the world. And as advocates, we have this really unique opportunity to make important contributions that will directly impact local communities, the Web3 mission, and the future of the Graph ecosystem. And I want to invite anyone listening to apply for the program and join this amazing community. You'll hear from several different members today, and first I will pass it to Colson.
Hi, everyone. Hey, as Christina said, the Graph Advocates are doing amazing work, and they're doing that worldwide. There are currently 192 Graph Advocates from 55 different countries, and you can see all of those countries in the slide. And I would go to the next slide, Christina. So the Graph Advocates are from different countries and time zones with different educational and professional backgrounds, involved full-time or part-time, and they're working together to build a vibrant, decentralized future. At the current time, 41 Graph Advocates are also Graph Advocates DAO members. And I would like to tell you what exactly the Graph Advocate DAO is and what the Graph Advocates DAO members are working on. So the Graph Advocates DAO is the community governing body that oversees membership and contributions of the Graph Advocates program. And we process community grants up to $20,000. The two strategic pillars of Graph Advocates DAO and the Graph Advocates program are the Graph Advocates program and Community Grants program. Members of the Graph Advocates DAO overseeing the Graph Advocates program facilitate the growth of the Advocates program by accepting new members, providing education to Graph Advocates, and funding the Advocates program when needed. The members of the Graph Advocates DAO overseeing the Community Grants program review community grant application on the public forum and fund community grants. To make sure these programs run as smoothly as possible, the members of Graph Advocates DAO are part of one or more DAO committees. And Christina will tell you more about this committee. So I would like to hand the mic back over to Christina. Thank you, guys.
All right. So in order to achieve these two goals, we've created 3 committees within the DAO. The Advocate Committee oversees all advocate applications and onboarding of new advocates. They also facilitate and oversee contributions and reimbursements and identify advocate grant recipients to encourage those advocates to continue to contribute to the growth of the Graph ecosystem. The Grants Committee oversees all grant applications. They facilitate the review process and identify valuable requests to make a recommendation to the DAO. The DAO then votes on DAO House and distributes the funding if approved. The Operations Committee has created a foundation for the other committees through the implementation of various platforms and the introduction of GOCs, which are Graph Advocates DAO operating codes. And these are the agreed standards by which we operate. Each committee consists of about 11 to 15 members, and within those committees, we form teams to work on these different initiatives. Next, we have Derek, who will share a little bit about system scaling in the DAO.
Yep, so at the onset, well, first off, it's good to see everyone. At the onset of the DAO, we started essentially with nothing. We had to develop, our standard processes. How are we going to fund a grant? How are we going to track advocate contributions? What are all the legal aspects that need to be in place? And so that's something that we've been working on in this first 6 months, and all of that should be coming to a head shortly. So, per the slide, we've got a lot of people that work in it. These are some of the second or the middle column shows some of the systems that we use. We primarily coordinate through ClickUp, and that kind of starts to organize all of the rest of the stuff that we do. Some of it you'll see more in the remainder of this presentation. And then there are a ton of different workflows, lots of behind the scenes things in terms of, making sure that we have KYC in place for when someone's getting a grant. how do we structure our budgeting to make sure that we have funds being allocated within the DAO properly, and then also to ensure that we are, obviously funding grants and advocate contributions. How do advocates report their contributions? All of those different workflows are things that we've been working hard on setting up, and it's been going very well. We'll go to the next slide here. Okay, good. So in the Graph Advocates DAO, there are different teams and different roles, I guess. And so we'll just kind of go through these at pretty high level. In the Operations Committee, or we call it Ops, we oversee all of the DAO processes and general workflow. We cover all the administration of the DAO to make sure that we have the different software capabilities that we need, that type of stuff. We oversee governance. So if there's something that needs to be discussed in terms of how we're going to operate moving forward, that goes through the whole GOC process, as Christina mentioned earlier. And again, we oversee all the platform management. Then we have the Advocates Committee, which is in charge of onboarding, first processing new advocate applications and then onboarding those accepted into the program. And then as they start to contribute, making sure that they're getting reimbursed for their contributions, especially when it involves cost, like going to an event, that type of stuff. And then we have our grant committee, lastly, that oversees the grants funded by the Advocates DAO. And so they are in charge of processing the multitude of applications that we receive, trying to figure out what's going to be a good use of the funds to ensure that we are achieving the mission of the Advocates DAO. Perfect. And then Christina, is this one also me?
Yes, I'll take this one. I've got this one prepared.
Sure.
All right. So on the next few slides, we'll take a closer look at each of the teams and some of the workflows and initiatives that are driving them. Each team consists of about 3 to 7 DAO members who can volunteer to contribute in that area. Members can contribute on their own terms and in whatever area they choose and feel that they can bring value. So everyone contributes at a different level. Some members will be on multiple teams, while others may only have the capacity for one. This allows somebody with only a few hours every month the opportunity to focus in on a specific team and their tasks. Operations teams are building the foundation for the 2 pillars of the DAO, the Advocates Program and the Grants Program, while considering scalability. While we're currently a group of 41 DAO members, we try to think about what it will look like when there are maybe 3 or 4 times more, and document all of our processes to form clear guides. And it also helps us to have alignment. The focus has been on helping build the advocate application process, the grant application process, and most recently, the advocate contribution process. And much of the logistics takes place in ClickUp, so we will start there. So the DAO uses ClickUp as a tool to collect information from advocates and applicants through forms, advocate application forms, grant application forms, confirmation requests, proof of contribution forms. It also helps us to manage and distribute tasks. Teams can be assigned and members can also assign themselves to any task. We collaborate on workflows and documentation, creating guides both internally and externally facing, and it gives us some reporting abilities too. The advocate application workflow from application to onboarding all takes place in ClickUp. The grant application workflow and the advocate contribution process, they all start in ClickUp. So for each application that is submitted, we create a profile, which makes it easy to aggregate a community member's activity within the DAO. Have they applied to the Advocates Program, and how many community grants have they submitted, those kinds of things. The Twitter team also utilizes ClickUp with a board for all of their tweet planning. Each committee has a quick tasks list where they can quickly add a task and prioritize it, assign it, set a due date, and tag it in the notes throughout the whole platform. ClickUp really creates this collaborative environment for us to work together and share responsibilities. while keeping a record of who's done what and where we are in the workflow. It's really been instrumental in getting these initiatives launched and to their ongoing success operationally. An example of how it's benefited the DAO can be seen with the application workflow. Before we had ClickUp, we were using a Notion doc. The time that it was taking to review new applications was incredibly long, not just because of the number of applications, but because of the visual representation of the data. It was really easy for applications to kind of get lost, and the communication was fragmented. I now see applicants submitting their application and then being accepted to the program in about a week or two, depending on their availability to be interviewed. So I'm pretty confident in saying that we're all really excited when we processed the last application on Notion and moved everything over to ClickUp. Now we'll go back to Derek, who will share about the finance team.
Yeah, and I'll echo that sentiment. Having everything on ClickUp has just been so much nicer. On to finance, where we talk about the dollars. Our finance team has been reviewing a multitude of things, not only just budgeting for each of the committee and ensuring that the DAO has the necessary resources to operate, which that in itself is a pretty daunting task on how do we make sure that we're paying DAO members at fair rates without overcompensating, without undercompensating, but making sure that people feel like their work is valuable and that they are wanting to produce more valuable work. So that's been a pretty big topic. After that, we've been preparing funding requests to the Graph Foundation. So all of the work that we did in our budget planning is going to go as a presentation over to the Graph Foundation as we request for more funding for future quarters. In the last 6 months, we also set up our multi-sig account so that there can be scenarios where you have an advocate that flies to a city and they're like, oh, hey, I need a hotel, or my flight was delayed, so I need to change my flights. And now they need rush expenses to cover something. And we need some agility with being able to service those advocates. So we set up a multi-sig as kind of like an emergency wallet. And that has multiple signers throughout the DAO to ensure that things are secure, but at the same time, very agile. Next, we go over our quarterly financials. So we take a look at the work that was done, and then we start to evaluate, what is the monetary valuation of those things to make sure that we're properly directing our work in places that we need to be. And lastly, which I'll show you a bit more in the next slide here, is our internal compensation tool. So the way that DAO members get paid is through an app called Coordinate, and each DAO member has kind of a voting power where they could there's a token tied to that, and so it's called Give. And so you can give other DAO members some of your tokens, so you can give, and based off of the total amount received will equate to the amount that DAO member gets paid. So obviously, we want people to get paid proportionate to their work and their quality of work, both amount and quality. And in the initial stages, we were noticing that people, were very, very friendly, and they wanted to give equal give to all of their friends, and luckily we've got a great community with very thoughtful and caring people. But then we started to dig into this in terms of what's going to be the best way to compensate people and ensure that production's occurring and all that type of stuff. And so that's how this tool was birthed. And what it is it allows DAO members to list out the various tasks that they've completed throughout the month, the amount of time that was spent on them, and then you can go through, or each DAO member goes through, and then they will evaluate those tasks. Certain tasks might be completed to a really high quality, and you can give bonus points, which is the right-hand side underneath the purple section. You can see where it says extra rewards, or extra rewards, 100%, 50%, 25%, or maybe it's something that you don't value quite as much as a DAO member, and you can say, okay, I want to give that one a little bit less rewards, or I don't want to give that any rewards at all. And so it's up to each DAO member to evaluate what they feel the productivity has been, and from there we derive a total value, or a total spread of give distribution, which is that green section on the far right. And that kind of helps us, or helps guide us in terms of how we should be directing our compensation amongst DAO members in a specific committee. So the tool just recently went live. I personally, I totally love it. It makes my job so much easier to evaluate all the work and know what each other's doing. A lot of DAOs have the problem where, you know, so many people are working on different things that you don't always know what other DAO members are working on. And especially in the formative stages, a lot of things are kind of under the hood. And so this has been a great way for us to kind of keep track and keep everyone accountable, and reward people that are doing great work, even if it's not, you know, publicized all over the place. So that is our coordinate distribution tool. And then next I'll pass it over to Annie to talk a little bit about governance.
Hi. All right. Thank you, Derek. Hello, everyone. So the governance team was actually the first team to hold weekly meetings in public in the spirit of Web3 and transparency. Yeah, that happened. And then the governance team essentially ensures the governance processes that they're highlighted during these meetings. There are various proposals that get posted on the forum in DAO House, and so the governance team basically helps bring these to light and just brings awareness to them, as well as GitHub repo watch as well. And essentially, the governance team also manages the flow of Graph Advocates operating codes and builds and documents the foundational process in which the Advocates program, the Community Grants program, and the DAO in general agree to run, basically. Next slide, please. So Graph Advocates DAO operating codes, they were inspired from the concept of EIPs, otherwise known as Ethereum Improvement Protocols, as well as GIPs, which are the Graph Improvement Protocols. GOCs provide essentially a formal presentation of agreed structures in the DAO. Anybody can propose a GOC via a forum post. However, most are formed within the DAO and posted from members specializing in that specific area. So after a discussion period on the forum, GOC proposals are then voted on via a signal post in DAO House, where they are officially adopted as operation codes for their plan. And GOCs basically provide the DAO with verifiable documentation in order to achieve alignment and accountability within the DAO. Yeah, that's it for the governance team, and I will pass it over back to Christina.
All right. The forum team has set up a discourse forum, including some integrations with Discord and ClickUp. They are also moderators of the platform now. Automations have been set up so that when a new grant proposal is submitted through the forum on ClickUp, the response is immediately posted to the forum and discussions can begin right away. Off-chain polls also take place on the forum where an on-chain vote is not needed. And our forum is very active. Everyone's encouraged to go review the grant proposals that are on there and cast a vote. We also have a voting area for community members. The link is forum.graphadvocates.com. So I'll pass it back to Annie, who is also on the Twitter team.
Thanks, Christina. All right, so Twitter and Telegram teams. So these were also built with the vision of bringing awareness to the Graph ecosystem, Web3 and the DAO in general. So Telegram basically serves as a funnel almost to help redirect Web2 users to the Advocates DAO Discord. So the Telegram team basically monitors the channel. And then Twitter, we've been also, again, using Twitter to bring awareness to the DAO and the Graph ecosystem in general. We have a growth of 1,000 followers in 6 months, which has been great. And we also use Twitter to bring awareness to the public meetings that held in the DAO channel, in the Discord channel as well. So we have a Twitter GOC, which was actually the first GOC, I think, within the DAO. And we also have a Twitter workflow and ClickUp that you will see in the next slide. And this basically ensures that we send out high quality tweets and ensures also that everything is just in check, and we use best practices to basically tweet out things for the DAO with the highest quality pulse. So yeah, the Twitter team always makes sure that there are at least 2 other approvals per tweet. So it's got a review process to, as I mentioned, to ensure the highest quality tweets. Yeah, and then now we can move on to the community talk team. So the DAO community talk team, the DAO has hosted 5 community talk calls, and those take place every 3rd Tuesday of the month on the Graph's Discord server. So the community talk team, in order to prepare for those, the team plans 2 meetings to brainstorm ideas and highlight a few of the exciting new things that are happening within the ecosystem, within the Graph ecosystem each month. So the community talk team essentially is constantly researching to make sure that we highlight very important things within the community talk. So the community talk is meant to be a place where anyone can join, and we strive to keep discussions light on the technical side. So the team wants to emphasize this every single time we hold the talk, because it's very important, especially with the Graph being such a complex and technical protocol. It's important to kind of help welcome people in by not having too technical discussions, So that's important. And we usually have about 4 people from the community on for a segment, and we are always sharing links during the talks themselves just to keep everybody informed. And yeah, all right, Christina?
Yeah, and I myself find that it's just a wealth of great information. I'm always wanting to go look at all the different things. It's really helpful to know what's happening in the community. And so our community talk template helps to create a really smooth call each time. It makes it easy to tag who's taking what role in the planning of the call each month, who's going to be the call moderator, the chat moderator, recording the call, and links for all the call to actions that we have. Even though it's an ops team, all 3 committees are always encouraged to join and contribute their ideas and bring anything to community talk. Okay, next we have Dylan. We're going to welcome Dylan, who is on the website and technical team.
Hi, yeah, thank you. So the website team consists of about 4 or 5 DAO members currently, and we have developed, not to get too technical, but we developed a Next.js app that serves as a landing page, which is just utilizing a React framework. The landing page is unique because it connects to kind of our central hub, which is ClickUp, and can serve data such as our member profiles to a publicly available page. It also connects to other infrastructure components such as Live Peer and Google. The Live Peer component allows us to stream public meetings, allows us to stream learning series in a way that doesn't require people to have Discord or be in Discord. So it's kind of pretty unique. And then it also embeds the Google Calendar with all of our current events or future events as well. I would say the goal of the website is really to orchestrate all this information and provide just easily accessible links to all of these things that the DAO is doing, and trying to kind of combine it into an easily accessible page. So let's jump to the next slide. On the technical team also consists of about 4 or 5 people, I believe, and their goal is really to support the operation of the DAO itself in terms of infrastructure, in terms of providing these software options that can allow the DAO to operate smoothly. Things such as providing the domain itself and making sure the domain is pointed to the correct location, which is serves the app, which is the Vercel, utilizes Vercel. Sets up the GitHub, allows permissions on the GitHub, allows PRs to be pulled in, all these things. And in addition, it also does password management as well. So just all of the backbone that really supports the smooth operation of the DAO. Anything that goes wrong, any type of permission mismanagement or any type of server non-accessibility to server information type of thing really falls onto this technical team. I believe next, we can jump to the next slide, which I believe is Paulo or Lorena can speak on the advocate committee teams.
Lorena, are you there, Lorena?
Hello?
Hi, Lorena.
Now it's okay? Sorry.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you so much to be present in this call. It's very important for all of us, to present what we already done in these last 6 months. And I want to talk about the advocate committee teams. There is 4 committee teams. There is the advocate application, advocate onboarding, language support, and advocate contribution. The advocate application team was that was the first team in this committee, because we have very active in the first stage of the DAO with all the application. So we learn a lot of things about the first months of this DAO. And what I want to be focused is the how many advocates we have. Okay, we have many advocates, we have many applications, we have already coordinate many things related with advocates in this application. The advocate application team, has a process. The process is, I don't know if I have to talk about that, sorry, or is the next speaker, but I
Yeah.
want to say very, very easily about that, that the team is divided into different groups. The application that has a processes in ClickUp, and when an advocate, a candidate has an application, we make a research of that, and there is two different interview with the applicant, and then we have a process to consider this application. Once the candidate became advocate, they have the second team, that is the advocate onboarding. There is a team that when the candidate became advocate, start the process on board. There is a call. There is once a month we have a call with the onboarding call with all new advocates, that to explain with all the processes. The onboarding call is once a month, the second Wednesday of the month. And after that, the process is we have onboarding call. After that, the advocate select their role, and there is different calls with the different team. That could be a translation team, could be even evangelist, mentoring, even evangelist, Web3 welcomer, technical, or so on. So this team is in charge of that. Of course, we have meeting to prepare that onboarding call for the new advocates. We try to give support to all the new advocates. The third team is language support, that Juliana and Conso will talk later. But language support is to give support to all the advocates, that's in different languages. So after we can talk about that. And the last team is advocate contribution. This is the last team that we have already created. We have working on processes in the contribution. So later we can talk about that. Juliana, or I don't know, Cristina, has I continue or I
Yes.
have to talk or not? Sorry, I
I'm
don't
going.
have.
It's okay.
Yes,
I'm going to share a little bit more about the application team. Lorena
Yes.
gave you a little bit of an overview, but the application team, like she said, was one of the first teams to form to take on the task of these initial reviews of the advocate applications. And once an application passes the initial review phase, the advocate is invited to schedule 2 interviews with the DAO members via a Calendly link. And we currently have about 10 members of the Advocates Committee who conduct these interviews with applicants in a round-robin scheduling format. On the right, you'll see a screenshot that shows different columns for the status of each application, and you'll notice that the team has assigned themselves to an application as the person to see it through to a completed stage. We've split this up by day of the week. So for me, I go in to check for any applications in the initial review column every Wednesday and review and take the next steps for those applications. Each application is automatically given a due date 1 month from the submission. That turns red when the date has passed, so it's easy to spot if one has been pending for more than a month, and then action can be taken on that. The application team has developed resources for the Advocates Committee members by creating guides for various stages throughout the application process, including instructions for initial reviewers, instructions for interviewers, guidelines for interview results, email templates, how to create a profile for the applicant, and some guidelines for special scenarios like no-shows and cancellations. We've done a lot of work on documenting all this. All right, I'm going to pass back to Annie, who's going to tell us more about the onboarding team.
Thanks, Christina. So the onboarding team is basically the first team that advocates interact with right after they get accepted into the program. So because of this, the onboarding team has the responsibility of welcoming each wave of advocates. And we do that through a monthly onboarding call where we let the advocates know how the program is run and what is expected, and how they can take on, and how each is basically structured and run, basically. And also the onboarding team administers the advocate role on Discord, which essentially gives advocates access to the program itself. And the team is also responsible basically for just ensuring smooth onboarding for advocates and answering any questions on Discord as well, to make sure that all advocates understand what's going on and they're not behind on anything. Yeah, can you have the next slide, please? Thank you. So the onboarding team has created guides for ensuring a smooth onboarding process for new advocates accepted into the program. And these documents basically include team responsibilities, instructions for changing the status of applicants from being, just applicants and then changing them over into advocates themselves, onboarding call moderation guidelines to ensure that everything goes smoothly for that, and also advocate program FAQs as well. Yeah, thanks.
All right, next we have Juliana or Colson talking about the language support team.
Thanks, Christina. Hello, everyone. So in the last couple of months, we've learned that within the Advocates program and Advocates DAO, we have a great number of bilingual members who expressed their willingness to oversee language-specific communities, and the GOC 19 provides a framework for evolving into a multilingual ecosystem by working together with these members and other ecosystem participants. to ensure the language support system is of utmost quality, we proposed a four-staged framework, which will be now presented by Colson, who did great job and took a lead on putting this framework together.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about the language support team. So language support has so far not been a priority in Graph Advocates DAO, but it might become a great catalyst for growth of the Advocates program in the next 12 months. So we propose a stage setup. And in the first stage, the discovery phase of language support, the language support team will identify the need of this to support a specific language. Then in the groundwork stage, language support can work together with graph advocates and community leaders to increase the capacity to start providing partial and eventually full language support to create a more inclusive, multilingual graph ecosystem. At the current time, while we are not having these language support systems in place yet, one of the roles that the graph advocates can engage in is the role of text translator. And for an overview of how the graph advocates are engaging in this role, I will pass the mic back to Juliana.
Thanks, Kosin. So text translation is directly connected with languages and communication. So as a process, it is placed somewhere between language support and advocates' contributions. And I would like to take a moment and showcase our translations in numbers. So within Advocates program, there is a total number of 78 text translators who are working together and are also proofreaders for each other. And since launching the program, total number of 12,217 words of various source text, mainly blog posts and articles, have been translated into 11 languages listed on the slide. And this means that the number can be actually multiplied by 11, resulting in 134,387 translated words. Additionally, the text translators have been able to translate already 10,000 words in the graph crowding project for translating the website, and only 2 weeks have passed since they've been invited to the project. I think this is an amazing result, especially if we take into account that this is still only the beginning. And the next slide, please. And I would like to emphasize that although we are talking here a lot about words and numbers, and the translation process is really focused on words again, sentences, text passages and segments, and finally completed contents, it is not really about words in the end, but about communities and cultures and their awareness. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Juliana. All right, our contribution team. The contribution team is tasked with collecting all the information about where advocates are contributing to the ecosystem and then distributing advocate grants for contributions that exceed a certain threshold. So with the help of a working group of advocates, we have created an endorsement catalog that includes the types of contributions that the DAO endorses. This is a reference for advocates to know what types of activities do not need additional approval. To collect information for contribution types outside of the endorsement catalog or for those that require reimbursements, we have a confirmation request form specific to each advocate role. Advocates make their request, and role-specific reviewers, a group of about 4 or 5 DAO members in that role, will review the request and determine if it qualifies. So once advocates have completed a contribution, they fill out a proof of contribution form, POC, and the role-specific group of reviewers makes an assessment based on the quality and difficulty of the contribution. The contribution team makes sure that reimbursements for approved expenses are distributed to the advocates, and once a month, they will aggregate the advocates' contribution scores across all roles that they have and distribute grants to the advocates that exceed that certain threshold. This contribution workflow spans throughout the DAO to all members. It's really a connection point for DAO members to know where advocates are planning to contribute and to be able to help them. DAO members in a role also have created role-specific guides to calibrate reviewers on the grading scale for the different roles and give guidance on questions to ask or things to look for when reviewing confirmation requests and POCs. The Advocate Contributions team has created internal workflow documentation for initial reviewers, for the process of reviewing and assessing contributions, the process of identifying advocates who should receive grants, reimbursement process, and also email templates. We have just launched this process. It's still very new, and we're super excited to begin reviewing forms that are submitted and seeing all the ways that advocates are contributing to the ecosystem. Additionally, the Advocate Contribution team and other DAO members in their specific roles have also created an external-facing contribution guide for all advocates that includes a contribution workflow and the reimbursement process, and a guide for each advocate role with links to the confirmation request and POC forms, the endorsement catalog, tips, FAQs, and some other information. Okay, back to Juliana and Lorena for the grant committee.
Thanks, Christina. So grant committee oversees the grant application process by establishing completely new, unique, and transparent grant review process where not only initial review team is involved in the review at the very early stages, but also other grant committee members participate in the process along, as well as all community members are able to signal their opinion on every grant application and follow the different stages the application is going through. So after discussing the grant application workflow, we will also highlight the community involvement and the grant applications in itself. Next slide, please. Thanks. The grant application process consists of many steps, stages, and statuses. As you can see on the attached picture, it is quite complex. The workflow is supported by the grant review guide and other references and instructions inside the workflow. This is an important factor as it assures that every grant committee member has the same level of knowledge and that all grant applications can be reviewed according to fair and clear rules. This process is also scalable and allows every new grant committee member to quickly join and support the process. How does the grant workflow look like when it comes to the particular steps? So the grantee is submitting the grant application, which appears instantly both in ClickUp and on the forum, where it is available for all community members to read, like, comment, ask additional questions, or even have a discussion with the grant applicant. What happens in background is the initial review done on the daily basis by different committee members who assign themselves as owners of the application, which means basically that from now on, they will be responsible for timely processing of the application, gathering the feedback both from the community and from Advocates DAO, moving the application along through different statuses until completion of the grant. After gaining support from the community in the community review stage, the public presentation is held in Discord, where applicants have the opportunity to show their passion and showcase their project. In the next stage, which is DAO discussion stage, the assignee is coming back to the committee with the feedback from the presentation, and the off-chain vote in forum can be taken. If the application moves to the status recommended, the KYC and grant agreement can be signed between the grantee and the advocates DAO. After the positive outcome of the initial on-chain voting, the 20% of grant amount can be paid out to the grantee, and after completion of the grant project, the second vote on-chain is taken so that the rest of the grant amount can be supplied. And this is how the process looks like from a very high level. Of course, every case and grant application is different. So personally, I really appreciate the workflow to foresee different occasions for sharing and exchanging opinions between not only the committee members, but most importantly, within the whole community. And now Lorena will talk a little bit about how it all looks in numbers so far. Thanks.
Thank you, Juliana. Yes, when we talk about this DAO, we have two different missions. The first mission is to have many advocates all around the world, and the second mission is to give community grant. Okay, so the focus on this DAO is in this what I talk is give community grants. So the all the process that we Juliana mentioned and the previous members mentioned is to do that. And at this time, we already have many applications. Okay, 55 application, and the numbers are there. I don't have to to read this, but what is important? We already have uh, start the process. We have in four. I will highlight four applications that are in on chain vote. There is a site event, it Latam site event in Santiago. They will be in the process of being on chain vote. The other application grant is a talk in the site event in Santiago. The other is the GRT data is on chain vote. So we want to show that we are working to do that, okay, to obtain many community grants. So even we already have been working in processes, now that the process is almost finished, we can show what is the result of all these processes. And that is important to show in this public call, how we can be working hard to obtain different grantees. So we are analyzing a lot of application now, and in this process we can show four. But I will in the few weeks we will have many applications in the processes on vote. So that is important to us. Show what we are working and how we can show all the process and the result of the processes. Yes, this is the latest GRT Data Hub, Ethereum Sci7 in Chile, and Republic of Ocean.
Right, now we'll have Colson talk to us a little bit about some of the DAO Wide Initiatives.
Yeah, hi guys. So in the next slides, I will tell you about the multiple DAO Wide Initiatives. So the first one is the community calendar. And that's a calendar that shows all the community events like this call. And the DAO is also providing ongoing education to DAO advocates. So Two of the educational programs I would like to tell you about are the role chats and the learning series. The first one is the learning series. So every month, one or more DAO members that are highly experienced in a certain advocate role host a role chat. In this chat, they go over the best practices of the advocate's role and provide mentoring to graph advocates. The second educational program hosted by Graph Advocates DAO is called the Learning Series. And the Learning Series consists of high quality, highly specific courses on every aspect of the Graph ecosystem, led by somebody from the ecosystem. A couple of examples are querying and indexing smart contract data with the Graph. That one was hosted by Simon from Node. The second one is an introduction to indexing and indexers, hosted by a DAO member, Vince from Notify. And a third example was how to answer questions in the Graph ecosystem, and that one was hosted by me. In the next slide, I will show you a couple of highlights from the Graph Advocate contributions. So the Graph Advocate contribution highlights are some of the contributions that Graph Advocates did and are ongoing. And I would like to showcase three of them. So Alex from the Graph Advocates DAO, who's also a DAO member, really good technical teacher, is hosting live coding along series, free for everyone to join, and you can find them on the Advocate calendar. A group of advocates are also writing documentation about subgraphs. And Kyle, who is a DAO member and a really good community support, has been writing an Advocate Spotlight newsletter. And they will show you this in the next slides. So I would like to invite Kyle, Chibidam, and Derek to talk more about these Advocate contributions.
Thanks a ton, Colson. Yeah, happy to be here. So the Graph Advocate Spotlight is a newsletter that I've been releasing every Thursday for the last 10 weeks or so. So it kind of is a good way for advocates to get to know one another. Also a good way to stay up to date on all the significant events in the Graph ecosystem, including, like when we hit certain marks like 10,000 delegators, which is super exciting. We've kind of been able to add a few things along the way. And I will say I've seen a cool trend of folks, advocates who participate, afterwards tend to have like an uptick in engagement and contributions, which has been super cool to see. And we also just get to showcase the rock stars that are already doing so much. A few of them are on this call. So yeah, it's been a cool initiative, and looking forward to keeping it going.
We have Chidabam.
Hello, everyone. I'm Chidubem. So Alex is unavailable to take this session, so I'll be giving my perspective on it since I've been an active participant of these sessions. So Alex started the sessions to basically connect with other community members that have technical interests, and he leads it, but it's usually participation from other members that make these sessions very lively and fun. The sessions are predominantly focused on software engineering topics like containers and general purpose programming. And it's usually a very relaxed learning environment. Excuse me. It's usually a very relaxed learning environment with different skill levels. Beginner or an expert are usually part of these sessions. And so far, we've covered like the basics of Kubernetes, an introduction to Prometheus, and also set up a Docker container. And I personally have explored these different tools for the first time in these sessions. One of the topics that we would also be diving into is Rust, and other community members are all so overall, it's been an awesome experience for me, and looking forward to have.
All right, thank you.
So I think the next slide would be for Derek for subgraph documentation.
There we go.
Awesome. And then Christina, I'll ask you to just click once so I can pull up the first little image there. And then Nick, your mic is not muted at the moment. So for subgraph documentation, I guess first off, what is this? You know, when developers are building subgraphs, typically we've seen people building subgraphs for their own application. And kind of the beauty of subgraphs is it's an open API. So, you know, they can query their own protocol subgraph, but there's the composable nature to blockchain where others can also integrate with it. So a great example would be like if you wanted to start your own protocol and then you have a token, chances are you might put together a liquidity pool on Uniswap, and then you can utilize Uniswap's subgraph to interact with that data. So that way you can see, you know, liquidity or other metrics around your token. Or if you wanted to, you know, if your protocol had the capability of locking up tokens for a period of time and you wanted it to earn interest while it's doing that, you might integrate with something like Compound or Yearn or Silo Finance or, you know, something of that nature. And all these guys have subgraphs to where you can get data around that implementation. So kind of the difficulty that we saw is that inside of the documentation for these various protocols, they had, you know, typically they've got very good docs for their own protocol, but there's a lot missing in terms of the subgraph documentation, especially since people can name their entities or their various fields inside the entities whatever they want. You don't always have a good definition of what it is, or, you know, someone who lives under the rock that's never heard of the graph, they might not even know what a subgraph is. And so this is kind of the, you know, removing the assumption that people know what a subgraph is and how to query it. So by adding this to other applications documentation, that will help promote their own subgraph and help people integrate with their protocol. So we've had advocates that have been reaching out to the different mainnet subgraphs to be able to write documentation for them. It largely follows a very similar structure where we, you know, help define the different entities. We provide some sample queries, and this makes the developer experience for those integrating with these protocols just super fluid. So on the screen, you can see this is an example with the Connect's documentation. This is now live on Connect's website. So if you were integrating with them, you could see the subgraph documentation here and learn how to get data from that. We've got a bunch of them. So Christina, I'll let you kind of click through. So this one's for Juicebox, some sample queries. You can go to the next one's looks rare. You know, these are all live on each of these applications' websites. Lido, we've got Rocket Pool, we got ENS, Sablier, and then I think the last one on here is Premia. Yeah. And so all of these have just been submitted through pull requests by graph advocates, and it's something that's done purely to help our consumers and our subgraph developers have a better experience with the graph. One last kind of cool integration that the DAO has assisted with is we now have a link to where if you were to publish a subgraph onto the mainnet, you can go to sgdocs.graphadvocates.com. So that's SG as in subgraph docs, so sgdocs@graphadvocates.com. And you can submit a request saying, hey, I just published this subgraph. I don't really want to work on documentation right now. Can you guys help me out or whatever? For the developers on this call, they kind of know that documentation is not always the most fun thing to do, especially once you have a working product. Chances are you want to go use it. But this is something that really helps educate and bring along others that are working for your protocol. And we've also had good feedback so far from some of the teams themselves, where you have one developer that builds the subgraph, and then you have another front-end developer that needs to work with it, and they don't know all the different entities or all the, you know, what does this data mean, essentially. And so by providing documentation, we've had good feedback on helping the team educate the rest of the team on what the heck this thing is. So yeah, that's the effort with subgraph development. We've got a bunch more that are pending and being reviewed by the team, but this is something that we intend to provide to assist subgraphs with migrating over to the mainnet and making their experience even smoother. So with that, we'll go into future plans for the DAO. So obvious intent and obvious plan is we're going to be scaling. So we want to fund more advocate activities. We want to review and fund more community grants. Now that we've done a lot of the legwork to get our processes established and figure out what are those lines. We want to start ramping that stuff up super hard. We do want to get more DAO members involved. Obviously, the more DAO members that we have, the more decentralized the DAO is, which is always a good thing. Beyond scaling, we want to continue to build out the website. Some of the integrations that we've had just have been awesome. I don't know if you guys caught it, but the live peer integration, I still just love it. I think it's so cool. And then lastly, we want to expand the language support based on our roadmap. The number of people out there that are developing that don't speak English as a native language is just astronomical. By being able to reach them in the language that they understand the best, that's obviously going to help the graph grow faster. So those are our future plans. And then Christina, is there a next slide?
That's it. We just want to
thank you.
Yes. We just want to thank everyone for coming today and listening to our DAO update. We're really excited for the future. And thank you, and continue to join us for all of our public meetings.